सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। रामो राजमणिः सदा विजयते रामं रमेशं भजे। रामेणाविहता निशाचरचमू रामाय तस्मै नमः। रामान्नास्ति परायणं परतरं रामस्य दासोऽस्म्यहम्। रामे चित्तलयः सदा भवतु मे भो राम मामुद्धर। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। Hari Om everyone. Today is our Gita chanting yajna, which is going on in the morning, and it's so nice to see everybody chant Bhagavad Gita right from the anaghas, the pure ones, the sweet ones. Bhagwan calls Arjuna as anagha, and all the way until adults, Mahabaho, Parantapas. Names are also very nicely given, and our wonderful sevaks, along with all the teachers, so that yajna is going on. Even now, I think there are some groups that are still chanting. So we were seeing in Tattva Bodha, Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji is now elaborating about what is the nature of Atman. And with this, we saw different aspects. We saw what is Thula Sharira, what is Sukshma Sharira, and now we were seeing what is Karana Sharira, right? The gross body, subtle body, and causal body. But important thing to notice, Atman is that which is different from these three things. In the same way, Panchakosha is also pointed out. Atman is that which is beyond these five sheets. Avasthatraya, that is the third one. All of these things are called as prakriyas. Prakriya means a specific method. Method to do what? To achieve the same goal. To reveal the nature of Atman, these are the different methods of inquiry. So why is this everything described here? Because different Upanishads use these different methods of inquiry. For example, Ishavasya Upanishad uses the first one, Sthula Sukshma Karana Sharira, Viveka it is called. Taittiriya Upanishad will use Panchakosha Viveka. Mandukya Upanishad will use Avasthatraya Viveka. And again, Taittiriya Upanishad will again use Satchidananda Swarupa also. So for us to understand Upanishads better, for us to prepare ourselves to study Upanishads, there are Prakarana Granthas. So here in Tattva Bodha, Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji is just elaborating everything, defining everything well. And once we become thorough with these terminologies, these prakriyas, then we feel a greater joy and we appreciate more when we study Upanishads. And we should not have any kind of insistence on any prakriya, insistence on any method, or try to compare, is Sthula Sukshma Karana Sharira Viveka better or is Panchakosha better? But there is nothing like better, or worst, any of those comparison. It is just like, you are going from, let us say from San Jose to Los Angeles. You can take I-5 and go there, or you can take PCH1, or you can drive for some time on 101 also. So prakriyas might be different, goal should be the same. And if I don't know how to reach to that goal, that means I have to think more, right? I might start on one freeway but not reach the goal, means I've gotten diverted somewhere. I have not followed the right prakriya. So all prakriyas have their own importance, they have their own value. And for somebody who is a sincere student of Vedanta, they should be able to seamlessly understand and move across different prakriyas. That is where a lot of mananam will happen, and we'll be able to appreciate these things more. And all of it will reach to the same point. That is another beauty of these prakriyas, how they will use so many different ways of inquiry, but later on the same truth will be revealed. Okay, this word is called as samanvaya. Samanvaya means what? Seamless understanding. This is true not only for Vedanta, but for any field of inquiry. If you want to understand that field thoroughly, then we should be able to switch across different concepts, different topics, and arrive at the main essence. Okay, so this is our prakriyas that we are going through right now, and we were studying Karana Sharira. Okay, we saw what is gross body, Sthula Sharira, what is subtle body, we saw Sukshma Sharira, and now we were seeing Karana Sharira. Karana Shariram Kim Anirvachya Anadi Avidya Rupam Shariradvayasya Karanamatram Satswarupa Ajnanam Nirvikalpaka Rupam Yadaste Tatkarana Shariram. So these are the indicators of Karana Sharira and a very precise way of defining it. So first we had seen that same verses over here. So every time, whichever thing we chant, I put it down on that slide so we know what we are referring to. So Anirvachya we had seen why it is indescribable, because it doesn't have any attribute like shape, color, form, with the help of which only we can describe some object. Okay, so it can, another reason why it is indescribable is it cannot be called as existent also, means of the same degree of reality as Atman, nor can it be called as non-existent also, because effects of it are seen by us. So that is why it is said, focus more on removing it, not defining it properly. Then we had seen why causal body is beginningless, right? Because time operates in the realm of duality. And duality is a product of ignorance, and trying to point out this ignorance in the limit of time means we are ending up in a recursive cycle. So we say time is product of ignorance. Let us try to remove this ignorance. And it is beginningless because any ignorance is beginningless. All these points were discussed last time. Now comes the third one, which is it is avidya rupam, the highlighted one in red down there. What is this causal body? It is not something else. Like body word also sometimes can be misleading. We are familiar with gross body, which has some shape and form. We think the subtle body is also something like that. It might be in a dark place, but there is some body called as causal body. So we say no. Ignorance itself is called as causal body. So it is avidya rupam. Avidya always has to be of something. No, it cannot be just by itself. Even worldly ignorance, we cannot say that I am ignorant. Next question will be ignorant of what? Like last time we had seen, I am ignorant of Japanese language. I'm ignorant of, let us say, nuclear physics. So that ignorance should have a topic. So ignorance over here, when we say causal body is the form of ignorance, that ignorance is not of another thing of this world. That ignorance is of our true nature. That is why that other word comes, Sat Swarupa Ajnanam. Not knowing that I am consciousness, unconditioned by these, upadhis, untouched by these conditionings. That knowledge I don't have. I have some idea about myself, right? I know that I am a sentient person, a sentient being. I exist, that also I know. And now and then I keep getting glimpses of joy. So I know that I am Sat, I know that I am Chit, I also know that there is some Ananda here. But it is all mixed up, mixed up with some conditioning or the other. And that conditioned form alone I take as myself. That is called as ignorance. Okay, so this much we will keep for now. In Gurudev's BMI chart, the V or the vasanas which is there, that you can take as causal body. In some text, vasanas are mentioned in subtle body. So how we should understand is expression of those unmanifest vasanas are seen in subtle body. Okay, means if a thought comes, or whatever kind of thought it is, that thought is perceived by me. So my own vasana has become a thought now. So that thought will belong to subtle body, and that unmanifest vasana from which this thought sprung out from, that will be called as causal body. And this, ajnanam which is there, we say that is the seed of all problems. Okay, before we go to that one, this vasana, what we call. So vasanas will be both types. There will be Shubha vasanas, there will be Ashubha vasanas also, auspicious vasanas and inauspicious vasanas. But this ignorance which is there, that I am this finite being, you see, that is a fundamental problem of our personality. Fundamental cause of sorrows, if you want to find, he says you will find it here. In Bhagavatam, there is a very beautiful dialogue between Mother Earth, between Dharma and Raja Parikshit. And it is I won't go too much into the story, but the situation is somebody has come and they have beaten that bull. Dharma is in the form of that bull. And 3 of her legs are broken. And she is standing only on one leg, trembling. And Raja Parikshit asks, who is the one who brought you to this state? Actually, it was Kali, the Kali Yuga that we are living in, all the atrocities, all the negative things which are there in the jivas of Kali Yuga. So that is portrayed in a dramatic way, So Raja Parikshit asks, who is the one who has brought this state? And the answer that bull gives is so beautiful. He says, many people say that this is the reason of sorrow, that is the reason of sorrow, and everything. The final answer that I want to tell is forgetting Bhagwan is the cause of sorrow. It's a devotional text, so it is put in a devotional way, that forgetting our true nature to be consciousness, forgetting our oneness with Bhagwan, he says that is the fundamental reason of sorrow. And then that bull tells Raja Parikshit, now you only figure out at what level you want to address it. All of them are true. Immediate reason of sorrow could be one. If you go above, it is karma. If you go above, it is desire. What is the fundamental cause is, I have misunderstood myself. Okay, so that is this Sat Swarupa Ajnanam. And we should look for these things. Whenever we study Bhagavatam, Ramayana, same things will be said in a very different flavor. Whenever we study that, we will dwell more upon it. And causal body is said to be Shariradvayasya Karana Matram. Okay, it is the seed, the cause of subtle body and gross body. The mind, what we call, that has emerged out from this Karana Sharira. Physical body is also that way. So how do you understand this? Remember the first class, what we discussed, those points we can bring back here. Because of this ignorance which is there, I have some feeling that I'm lacking something right now. Right now I'm incomplete. Only after getting something or something happening, either it is some event or meeting some person, then I'll become complete. So this is that fundamental repercussion of misunderstanding myself to be this finite individual. Our Guruji said something beautiful in one of the lecture. The moment we say we have a desire, that desire itself shows that I'm incomplete right now. Means I always will have desire of something which I don't have. If I already have it, then there is no need to have another desire for it. So this happiness is like that. If I'm desiring happiness from some object, from some person, that itself implies that I don't think I have it right now. So this Ananda Swarupa, Brahma, which is my own true nature, that I have forgotten, and then I have some other idea. So to fulfill that, there are desires which express in a subtle body because it is bhoga sadhanam. And then I need to do karma to fulfill those desires. So then I have gross body because it is bhoga ayatanam. So unless I have gross body, subtle body cannot enjoy. And unless subtle body does not enjoy, I will not be able to fulfill that immediate desire that I have. So this is a simple way of understanding why Karana Sharira is Shariradvayasya Karanam. Okay, it is the cause of gross body. So in Gurudev's BMI chart, this you can take as gross body. And for simplicity purpose, you just take these two, mind and intellect, as subtle body. Okay, the others you can leave for now. They are the same, gross body and subtle body only. Gurudev has elaborated it. But what is the main point here? That this Karana Sharira has given rise to subtle body and it has given rise to this gross body. So what should I do? He says, increase Shubha Samskaras. Let the mind become purer and purer. And then you inquire into this Atma Tattva, which is not somewhere else. It is hidden right here. Somebody might say, if I am Sthula Sukshma Karana Sharirat Vyatiriktaha, right? I am different from that. Atman is different from this. Why are you describing so much in detail about all these things? You see, we are describing it because you will find Atma right here. It is not somewhere else. In and through these things, we have to inquire. Right where you find the snake, there alone you will find the rope. So right where you find gross body, subtle body and causal body, there alone Atman is. Okay, so they will appear together. I have to know what part I have to let go of. This much is good for this point now. Shariradvayasya Karana Matram. And then the last one is Nirvikalpaka Rupam. There is no perception of duality. Vikalpa means duality. Nirvikalpa means no duality. So in Karana Sharira, there is no perception of there is no perception of duality. Doesn't mean that duality has disappeared or gone away. It is just it is not being perceived right now. Okay, so in causal body, Karana Sharira, there is no perception of duality. Example we had given was a dark room. If you turn off the lights, everything is off, objects are there, but you don't see any duality, right? Because it is all dark. So in the same way, in Karana Sharira also, there is no perception of duality. So what is this duality? I said there are three things which are needed for any experience. One is jnata should be there, the experiencer should be there. The process of jnanam should be there. Like right now, I'm speaking, right? So that speaking is an action that should be there. For all of you, it might be you are listening, hopefully. In the midst of everything that you're doing, one of the action is listening also. So experience is happening, you are there, an object of experience is there. You might be seeing the screen or you might be seeing something else. So three things are needed for every experience. Object of experience, the experience itself, and the experiencer. And in Karana Sharira, there is no perception of this triad. That is why we are at bliss. When we sleep, that is when this Karana Sharira is distinctly experienced. Karana Sharira is distinctly expressed. And we are in absolute bliss. Right? Not that problems have gone away, they have just become unmanifest. Through Vedanta, we should understand them to be of a different degree of reality. So for a Jnani Mahatma, waking state can become equivalent to deep sleep. For somebody who has understood the mithyatva of this triad, in spite of perceiving these things, that Jnani can say, this thing is just an appearance. If you want to bring it one level before, you want to make it mellower, mind of this Jnani has become so pure that even the perception of this triad doesn't affect him. Because experiencer's mind has become very, very pure. The experience itself is very well moderated and regulated. And he makes sure that objects of experience are of sattvic nature. So with that also, Jnani is able to live as a Jivan Mukta. Okay. So, but for this point, you can just translate that word as Nirvikalpa. Nirvikalpaka Rupa means what? Where this Vikalpa, the triad of experiencer, the experience, and experienced, these three things are not perceived. Yad asti tat Karana Shariram. That Karana Sharira, that thing which is there of this nature, that thing is called as Karana Sharira. Okay. So now Atma Kaha was the question. We have seen what is Stula, Sukshma, Karana Sharira. Atman is that which is beyond all these three things. We saw the word Prakriya, right? In the beginning of the class. If you want to say what is the main Prakriya in Advaita Vedanta, he says the main Prakriya is Adhyaropa Apavada. Adhyaropa means what? Systematically redefining what we already know. Like right now, when we asked, what is our nature? I would say, or who are you? If something was asked to me like that, I would say, I'm this body. So now Vedanta has come and precisely defined what do we mean by Stula Sharira. Okay, that is part of Adhyaropa. It is knowingly superimposing something. So Vedanta says, oh, you thought only this physical body is there. Do you know what it is made up of? And a lot of elaboration was given. And Vedanta said, you don't even only have one body, you have three bodies. So that elaboration was done. Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira, And none of these things you can dismiss, because Vedanta is talking about our own experience, right? So that is Vedanta's way of defining things. Once Adhyaropa is done, then Apavada comes and says that you are that which is beyond these three things. So that is called as this Vyatireka portion which is there, right? Sthula Sukshma Karana Sharirat Vyatiriktaha. It is different from all these three things that we have defined. And the definition also is so precise and so beautiful that we can purify those upadhis, those conditionings, as and how we are learning about them. Right? So, while we are studying the text, we should also appreciate the way in which the teaching is given. Right? And that is how we should look at all other texts also. Okay. So now Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji is saying, let us leave that Panchakosha for some time. I will come to it. He will not forget any of it. He says, let us now go to Avasthatraya Sakshi. This is the second nature of Atman that is going to be described now. Okay. The first one we already saw. Now we are going to see Avasthatraya Sakshi. Avasthatraya means the witness of three states of experience. What they are, it will come now. Avasthatrayam kim, Avasthatrayam kim, Jagrat Swapna Sushupti Avasthaha, Jagrat Swapna Sushupti Avasthaha, Avasthatrayam kim, Jagrat Swapna Sushupti Avasthaha. Avasthatrayam kim, the student is asking the question now, what are these three avasthas? He says the three are called waking state, dream state, and deep sleep state. Jagrat, Swapna, and Sushupti. Now apply the same thing, what we discussed just now, that first Vedanta will come and do a thorough Adhyaropa. It will thoroughly define what is waking state. And for us in our lives, waking state is the only state that we are concerned many of the times. Or Maharaj used to say, Akhandanji Maharaj, that Jagrat Avastha is, halki phulki hai. Means it is a very simple thing. The curious one is the Swapna Avastha. One that is so wonderful to analyze is Swapna Avastha. And he used to say, Asli baat to Sushupti mein hai. I mean, the real thing is in Sushupti. If you want to understand nature of Atman, then the state which is most helpful to understand is deep sleep state. And the one which is most curious to inquire in is Swapna Avastha, dream state. The Jagrat Avastha is okay, whatever is happening. So we'll see what is the definition, how each one of it is elaborated. So first we'll look at an analogy that is given in our Upanishads. The example which is given is of a river and a fish which is swimming in that river. So it is said you see the two banks of the river, one and the other bank which is there. It says call them as Jagrat Avastha, the waking state, and another is called as dream state, Swapna Avastha. And this current that is flowing in the river itself, it says call it as Sushupti Avastha. Okay, so there are three things over here. One is the waking state, which is one bank of that river. Another bank is dream state, and the river itself call it as deep sleep state. Now in that river, there is a fish, Mahamatsya it is called. And what does this fish do? He says this fish sometimes is in waking state. Sometimes you will find it in dream state. Again, it will come to this bank, go to that bank, again waking bank, and then finally go to deep sleep, if it is lucky. Okay. It will either go from waking to dream or back to waking or sometimes to deep sleep. But one of these three places you will find it. Now you see the beauty of this example, huh? It's not only to talk about the fish. It is the fish is unaffected by what is happening at the banks. What is this fish referring to? This fish is referring to Atma, Mahamatsya, Purushaha. So whatever is happening in Jagrat, this Atman is unaffected by it. Just like this fish is unaffected by anything that happens on the banks. Whatever is happening on the other bank, which is the dream state, consciousness is unaffected. And even the currents which are so, so dangerous sometimes, or it might take here and there, this fish is a tiny one. In Upanishad, it is said it's Mahamatsya. It's a huge, whale or something like that. So it is not affected by any of the current of that river. So none of the three states affects that fish. In the same way, none of the three avasthas affect consciousness. If you want to make it more personal, you say none of the three states affect me, the consciousness. Because our goal is to reveal consciousness as our own true nature. Another thing, the beauty of this example is, if you want to find the fish, you will either have to find it on this bank, Jagrat bank, or on that Swapna bank, or in between. Means you cannot find it somewhere else. Don't stretch the example too far. Huh? Don't say that, oh, this fish can also go somewhere. The thing is, for us to find nature of, or to find Atman, it is said, search right here. Look at the bank, let go of the bank, turn your attention to that fish. Come to Jagrat Avastha, understand it well, let go of that conditioning, turn your attention to consciousness. That is the main point of this analogy, right? That just as you will find this fish on one of the banks or in between, in the same way, consciousness has to be recognized right in one of these three states, or rather, to be understood as that which pervades all three states, that which is the witness of all these three states. Vedanta's solutions, way of inquiry is very beautiful. It does not limit the result of this knowledge to a specific place and a specific time. Imagine someone who has this clear understanding that in and through Jagrat Avastha, I am that consciousness which is unaffected by the modifications of this Avastha. Most importantly, modifications of this body and modifications of this mind. So more we systematically study Vedanta and pay attention to these finer points, more we will enjoy Vedanta. This is a Prakarana Grantha, right? Those who have attended Amrita Bindu Upanishad, there we had discussed this about Avasthatraya. I had given an example of origami paper, right? You make a bird out of it, a rabbit, and a horse. I don't remember the name of the animals. But if you want to find that paper with which you have made those three things, you have to either go to that bird or that rabbit or that horse. Name and form might be different, but right where there is name and form, the substratum is also there. This is the beauty of Avasthatraya Viveka, that entire avastha, entire state of experience, that becomes a conditioning, not one particular thing in that avastha. Entire avastha becomes a conditioning. Later on, more elaboration we'll do later, but I think this much is good enough for now. So this is that mantra from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Tadyatha Mahamatsya Ubhe kule anusancharati purvam cha aparam cha. Just like this Mahamatsya, this fish which is there, is going across those two banks without actually getting affected by those two banks. Evameva ayam purushaha etau ubhau antau anusancharati swapnantam cha buddhantam cha. In the same way, this consciousness is moving across the two banks untouched, unaffected by any of those conditionings. So now let us look at the first bank, the waking bank. Jagradavastha ka shrotradi jnanendriyaihi shabdadi vishayaischa jnayate iti yat sa jagradavastha shrotradi jnanendriyaihi shabdadi vishayaischa jnayate iti yat sa jagradavastha. Sthula sharira abhimani atma vishva ityuchyate sthula sharira abhimani atma vishva iti uchyate. So now you see the precision in his definition. Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji, he says, what is Jagrad Avastha? Jagrad Avastha ka. He says that which is known, that which is experienced through sense organs, organs of perception, shrotradi jnanendriyaihi, and that which is known through objects of experience, shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, gandha. Shabdadi means beginning from shabda onwards, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. It is not known only through organs of perception, it is known through organs of perception and through objects also. That state which is known through these two things is called as Jagrad Avastha. This definition should become pakka, it should become very thorough. Otherwise, what is our understanding of Jagrat Avastha? Oh, all this is Jagrat. Whatever I am saying right now is Jagrat. He says, no, there is some precision in that. And later on, we will realize why this precision is asked for. Our Swamiji used to say, general Vedanta, anybody can say. Anybody can, start elaborating on general Vedanta topics. I am Brahman, Jagat is Mithya. 2-3 classes you listen, those things will be very easily understood. But for us to have Dukkha Nivrutti, we need a lot of precision in that understanding. We need to know what each word means and how it relates to us. Okay, so this is Jagrat Avastha definition. Sthula Sharira Abhimani. In this Jagrat Avastha, the predominant window for this Atman to interact with this world is this body. So this Atman identified with this body gets a new name, which is called as Vishwa. Important thing to note is, Vishwa is the name of Atman. Vishwa is the name of Atman with conditioning. Okay, so this much is good. Let us see what is this waking state now. Okay, the same thing, the first line now. Shrotradi jnanendriyaihi shabdadi vishayescha jnayate iti yat sa jagrad avastha. So you take examples, you have incense stick, so fragrance is there, smell is there, right? You take tabla, music is there, So you are hearing sound. Taste is there. You take some herbal tea, for example. I use free images, right? So whatever I get, I put over here. So free means non-copyrighted images. That is why. So these things are there. Sight is also there. You are seeing these things. So together, with the help of all these organs of perceptions, ears, skin, eyes, tongue, and nose, that experience is called as Jagrada Avastha. That state which becomes known through organs of perception and through sense objects, that state is called as Jagrada Avastha. But we should not forget that Atman is witness of Jagrada Avastha. So don't forget Atman. He said it is in the light of consciousness alone, sense organs are able to hear and objects are revealing themselves. Okay, that state is called as Jagrada Avastha. So entire thing becomes an Upadhi now. Okay, everything on the right side of this dotted line will become an Upadhi, a conditioning. Now, how does this Atman identify with this waking state? It says gross body is the doorway to interact with waking world. Okay, what is the name of waking world? This entire creation that we see, what is the alternative word for it? It's a Vishwa. Right? Vishwa is the nature of, or the other word for this waking world. So consciousness identifying with this body becomes experiencer of this waking world. So because this gross body is the doorway to interact with this waking world, Sthula Sharira Abhimani Atma, this Atman which is identified with this gross body, gets a new name called as Vishwa. You see the beauty in the name also that is coined. Why is it called Vishwa? Why is Atman identified with gross body called as Vishwa? Because this gross body becomes a doorway for Atman to experience the Vishwa outside. So that is why Atma gets another name called as Vishwa. Okay, so we'll pause here. Next one is about Sukshma Sharira that we will see next time. Sukshma Sharira means Swapna Avastha. Now we saw Jagrat Avastha. Another definition will come for Swapna Avastha and Sushupti Avastha. But these points, whatever we discussed today, that we should keep reflecting upon. What is Prakriya? Why different Prakriyas are emphasized in Vedanta? And the point we saw about this Avasthatraya, that Mahamatsya, which goes from one end to another. What is the importance of that one? Okay. There are some announcements, so please stay back. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. So these were some questions from last time. Could you please explain what is Dig Devatas? So that Devatas concept, whatever is described, right? It is the same for all Devatas. Either it is Dig Devata, Varuna Devata, Ashwini Kumara. What Vedanta wants to point out is that these things are not running because of inert matter. Even our body, I am able to see because there is a sentient principle which is functioning through my eyes. I am able to talk because there is a sentient principle which is functioning through my speech. I am able to hear because Dig Devata, which is that sentient principle presiding over my ears, is functioning. So it's a way for us to change our way of looking at this world, change the way of looking at ourselves. I remember when we were studying in Sandipani, we were, during lunch, Bhiksha time, everybody used to sit on one table. And there used to be brahmacharis who used to come from other places also. And some of them were very traditional in their way. And their background was also, very traditional. So one day we were just, eating the food. And this brahmachari who was there, somebody shared something or, tried to just take something from the plate. That other brahmachari who was eating. And he got so upset, about something being taken from his plate or something being put in his plate without his permission. And he said a very nice thing. He said, we never eat to satisfy our hunger. Or we never eat to satisfy our taste. He said, we eat to offer ahuti to the presiding deities. So whatever goes inside, after you have done your prayer, so you cannot, just add and subtract things. But main thing to appreciate, what I learned from him is that even while eating, he has this bhavana. That if I'm eating something, it is the devatas to whom I'm offering it. So that is the whole purpose of describing it, that it is not only a mechanical action, but there is something more deeper to it. So it is up to sadhakas to how much they want to own up, how much they want to practice it. There was another question related to Sharanagati. I think I'd mentioned it somewhere about Sharanagati to Bhagwan. So the question is, what does Sharanagati actually mean? So the best definition of Sharanagati one can find in Ramanujacharyaji's writing. So he has written one shloka where he says, Sharanagati means 6 things should happen in Sharanagati. First thing is, I should have a resolve to do good things in my life. I should have a resolve to follow good virtues and values. Right? Auspicious resolve, what we say, if I see something in myself, I should at least not justify it. I should say, I have to overcome this now. So he says, before we talk about Sharanagati, he says, these are the blocks that will lead us to that point. Second level, he says, is after making the right resolve, putting forth effort to let go of that which is not so good in me. That also requires effort. Not only making the right resolve, but after doing that, second step is whatever shortcomings I've identified, putting forth conscious effort to let go of that. There was one Mahatma Ji, he defined satsang in a very beautiful way. In Hindi, it is, more sweeter to hear first. He says, what is satsang? जाने हुए असत का त्याग सत्संग है. That asat, that negative quality which I have seen in myself, putting forth effort to let go of that, he says that is called as satsang. Because sat you already are, you are including something which is not your true nature. Great Mahatma, he was Prajna Chakshu. Could not see through physical eyes, but his drishti was very, very beautiful. These points, without that purity of mind, these thoughts won't come to someone. So that is the second step in Sharanagati. First one was to identify my weakness. Second is to put forth conscious effort to overcome them. Third is seeking help from Bhagwan and having this conviction that if I ask something from him and I seek protection from him, he will protect me. He says this is the third element of Sharanagati. Ask from Bhagwan, whatever it is, and see in your own life, whenever you ask something from Bhagwan, how help has come from so many places and deepen our conviction in his ability to protect us through our own experience. This is, the majority portion of all stutis. Whoever has sung any stuti, this is the point they will highlight. Either it is gopis or it is somebody, Bhishma stuti, Kunti stuti. One of the main element of Sharanagati is, whom do I seek protection from? That altar at which I seek my protection should be Bhagwan. Then 3 are over, right? Fourth one is, having understood the nature of Bhagwan in this way, first, when we seek protection, we don't know Bhagwan, the way that he is, what is his nature. None of it is very explicitly known. We might go to some temple, pray, our daily prayers we might do. But now comes a more specific question to this sadhaka, to this devotee, where he says, I want to know more about him now. Because I see that the method that he has prescribed, that works. Means whenever I have asked for help, sincerely, I have received help. So in that one who is sending me help, I want to know more about his nature. Towards that altar, I am ready to offer myself now. That is the fifth step. And while I am offering myself, there is no arrogance of any kind. It's a very pure mind with which this sadhaka goes at the feet of Bhagwan. And he accepts that, Bhagwan, I don't know some things in my life right now. Or I have some vague idea about something. You guide me now more to get clear knowledge about your own nature and about the nature of this truth. So one who has all these 5 elements, that is called as Sharanagati. Anukulasya sankalpaha, first step. Pratikulasya varjanam. Rakshishyati iti vishwasaha, third step. Goptrutva varanam tatha, fourth. Atmanikshepa karpanye, fifth and sixth. Shadvidha Sharanagati. These are the 6 elements of Sharanagati. So you see how beautiful so many elements are packed in this one shloka. I tried to cover it in 5 minutes, but if you have to really understand it, we have to dwell on each phrase more and more. Okay. So that is our Sharanagati. First, we should hear about it and then start walking on this path. Right? All of us are together walking on this path. But it is beautiful if we know, certain precise meanings. Okay. There are some questions regarding today's class. Okay, I'll take one that I can answer in like 2 minutes. An elaboration we'll do later because that question also is needs that elaboration. Could you explain how Atman is Mahamatsya? It moves from bank to bank in the example given. Atma is Achalam, does not move, correct? Yes. Very good. If you have reached to this point, that means you are thinking about nature of Atman in the right way. So Atman is Achala. It is not moving. So that is a dissimilarity in the example. Okay, so example will have some limitation and we should know where the example is not matching. So that is why what the matching points are that we saw, right? That if you want to find that fish, you will find it in one of the 3 places. So that you will match with Atman also. if you want to find Atman, recognize Atman, the doorway is one of the three states. And second similarity is there is no, that this fish does not get affected by any of the things on the banks or even the flow of that current. So in the same way, Atman is not affected by any of the three states. So when we say that Upanishad mantra, how would you explain that then? Purusha is said is also going like that fish, right? From this bank to that bank. So it is said it is only from Upadhi standpoint, this Atman appears to be going from one place to another. If this point we dwell upon, do thorough mananam, something new will open up now. So going from one state to another is not from Atma's standpoint, it is only from the conditioning standpoint. Okay, so now example you can leave apart. Come to the Darshtanta, the thing that we are discussing. I am going to sleep is an erroneous statement. I woke up from sleep is equally an erroneous statement. Why? Because sleeping and waking up was of the conditionings, not of Atma. Atma never went to sleep, Atma never woke up. But because I have identified with this conditioning, I conveniently say, I went to sleep and I woke up. So, like this, when we dwell upon the example and we try to see where is this example falling short. So, having understood that this example falls short in that way, we'll still be able to own up something more in the main point that we want to convey. This is true with all examples. Vedanta's purpose of using the drishtanta is not only to get stuck with that drishtanta. Through that drishtanta, we should be able to understand the main point. Right? So Atman by itself does not get affected by any of these conditionings. And whatever goes and comes, sleeps and wakes up, that is conditioning only. I think this yoga nidra, whatever they practice, right? There they use this point. They say either they will lead you through all different parts of body, bring your attention on the toe, bring it on your hand, and so on. And gradually they'll say, let go of everything, because you are not that. I'm not an expert on yoga nidra. I just thought I'd heard somebody share this with me. Okay, so other questions, we'll take it next time. Okay, Hari Om everyone. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.